right. Welcome back to another episode of Bet GPT. I'm here with the infamous Austin Slade. How we doing today, my man?
I'm good, man. I'm back. I'm back in the dungeon though, so I apologize for our viewers on YouTube for the dark lighting.
Yeah, we're working on getting some ring lights. We got to charge it to the Bet GPT corporate card to get that figured out. But
Yeah, my undisclosed dungeon I live in.
it's all good. It's all good. Everyone's here for the content. So we can just get right into it. We didn't have too hot of a six pack last week.
No,
We went 2-4.
They aren't listening to us to make money, apparently.
Yeah. No, we'll be better. Last week we had some tough beats, so I'll just quickly run through it. West Virginia, Penn State, first half under 27, that hit. Luckily, all the points were mainly scored in the second half. Penn State went on to win that 38-15. NC State minus 14 against UConn. NC State didn't look that great. They only won by 10. UConn wasn't as bad as I thought they were.
They had the ball up 7, I think, like middle of the fourth, and they just kind of sat on the ball and didn't really do anything with it. But I felt like there was a good chance they were going to get that to a 14-point lead for it. Or they had the ball to get up 17.
Gotcha. Next one was Wyoming, Texas Tech under 51.5. This was like one of the last games on Saturday night, so I was watching it, and it was tied 20-20 with like a minute left, and of course it goes to overtime. It goes to double overtime. The final score ends up being 35-33, so it sails 20 plus points over the total. So that was super frustrating. Another, I guess this one isn't as frustrating because it actually made me happy that we lost this, but TCU minus 20.5.
The ultimate emotional hedge. It was to a point where it's like, okay, I'm not going to win this bet. Like, so TCU might as well lose now. So I wasn't upset to see them get spanked at home, get embarrassed at home. No one's going to take them seriously the rest of the year. It's just, sometimes it's okay to lose. And this was one of those times.
I was laughing. Their linebacker, Johnny Hedges, in his interview a couple days ago, preparing for this week's game, he said, I guess you could say it's a wake-up call. I don't know how losing in the national championship by 60 isn't a wake-up call, but right now we're the laughing stock of college football.
He's right. We're laughing.
That might be the only TCU athlete I actually like because he keeps it real. I hope he can find a way to transfer.
I think he is. I was about to say, I think he transferred in from like Army or something like that. So that explains why he's like mentally tougher than all his teammates.
Sure. Yeah. So prayers up to him. So that was another loss. You hit the South Carolina UNC under 64.5. There was only 58 total points in the game. So that was good.
48,
Excuse
right?
me, 48. Yeah. UNC won 31-17. So that wasn't even close. And then the Washington State, Colorado State game. I think you had a good idea there until they scored 42 points in the fourth quarter combined.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than when you're like, sometimes I'll track it. I'll be like, okay, we're on pace through a quarter. We're on pace through a half. And then when you're like going in the fourth quarter and it just, the whole pace gets screwed up and you're like, it's just not my night.
There were 32 points scored through 3 quarters and you had under 56.5.
Yeah, I felt really good.
24.5 points to play with, and it wasn't even close.
No. That'll probably never happen the rest of the year, so I'm glad we got that out of the way week 1.
I mean, that's just college football, so that's why we love it. So, yeah. So that was last week. You want to jump into this week's six-pack? Let the people know?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, real quick. If you go on our Twitter, we're documenting all these plays, so ever since it was either episode 1 or 2 I think it was episode 3, we gave out the first six-pack. We're down 0.7 units right now with a lot of futures pending. So we're pretty much at the break-even point. I'm going to blame us being a little under on Slade's minus 150 baseball picks at the beginning of the year that I was giving him a hard time on. So
you mean plus 150?
Oh, yeah, the plus 150 picks.
I'm trying to make not get these like incremental wins,
Yeah.
One big one.
No.
We've given so many good futures that I think it outweighs it.
Yeah, I mean the Gunnar Henderson's already at minus 900, and we got that at like minus 2 or 300. So we're unofficially in the green in my opinion. So let's build on that this week.
All right, and with that said, we're gonna do one. We're gonna start with one college football play. We're gonna get into college football later, kind of talk through some of the big games and some of the things we saw last week. But for the six pack, there's only one college play, and it's going to be Utah. I bought a point here. The spread is Utah versus Baylor. It was 7.5. I bought it down to 6.5. So I got that at minus 156. The reasoning here, I think, is pretty obvious. Utah is the 12th ranked team in the country. They just manhandled Florida last week. They have an extra 3 days to recover since they played on Thursday. Baylor played Saturday night and lost by 11 points to Texas State at home. They gave up 42 points. So, not to mention, Baylor's starting quarterback is also out this week, a multi-year starter. So, I would be shocked if Utah didn't win this game, and I bought that point. I wanted to make sure that if it's a 7-point win, we're safe. I wanted to make sure, they're up 14 late. Baylor gets a garbage time touchdown. I wanted to make sure we can still cover. So it's just preventing a backdoor on us. Utah minus 6.5. Bought the point. It's at minus 156.
Is there any chance Cam Rising plays in this game, or are we still dealing with the backup who did play well last week?
I think it's the backup, but I took this assuming the backup plays. So I'm comfortable either way. Their backup, they played 2 against Florida, technically, because they're kind of a little bit different skill sets, but I don't care which one plays. They should just be better all around. The game is at Baylor. I probably should have mentioned that. So that's part of the reason it was only 7.5 and not double digits. I think Baylor has a good coach, but I think Wisenhunt is like just one of the best coaches in college football. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I feel pretty good here. So moving on to the NFL, the first pick I've got, and I've put my money here and on a lot of bets. I think it's the Vikings are going to cover the 5.5 versus the Buccaneers. This game is in Minnesota. They won 14 games last year. I know I don't have them super high up like for the division necessarily, but I think it's pretty unanimous that the Bucs are not going to be very good this year. They struggled last year a little bit, even with like Tom Brady. So Tom Brady's retired. Their starting center, who was probably their second best lineman, Ryan Jensen, had to retire from football this camp. I just think the Vikings are more talented. It's at home. As you know, we've seen Quarterback, the documentary. We know what we get in Kirk Cousins. We know he's going to be prepared. The Bucs, we don't know anything about what they're going to get at a quarterback. So,
would you feel better about this bet if Baker Mayfield wasn't playing? Like, does Baker Mayfield starting this game, does that make you want to bet the Vikings? Is that part of it?
He doesn't scare me.
Or do you not really care?
Okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't really care. I was like, he doesn't scare me. At best, he could lose them the game pretty quick, or he could at best be like a game manager. I don't know. I haven't seen. He does have weapons, but I just haven't seen anything in like 4 years to really scare me there.
I mean, he obviously, like, he was the number one pick for a reason. Like, well, I guess 2 reasons. 1, because the Browns are a very incompetent franchise. But 2, because he does have a good arm. He can throw the deep ball. He has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So there is they have a pretty good chance of connecting on a couple big plays. It's just his decision making and throwing the balls over the middle. He's probably going to get picked off. And that's kind of where that Vikings team will probably get a turnover. And then Kirk will come down and score or something.
Right. You have a team that last year was very lucky, it seemed like a lot, and they were always in the right place at the right time. And then you have a quarterback who doesn't take care of the football. His first game with a new team, you never know what that's going to look like. They might still be working out some kinks. So again, Vikings covering 5.5 versus the Bucs in Minnesota. I do think they have a really good home field advantage too. I don't like playing there. And then my next NFL play, I have the Jets and the Bills under 46.5. That is the Monday night game. Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. Um, since 2018, the under has hit in 56% of Monday night football games. In the last five times these two teams have played and they're in the same division, it's been an under. I think sometimes when you get division teams together, they know each other a little better than others, and they can kind of defend each other's strengths maybe a little better. I mean, they're literally built to stop one another. The games are usually more competitive. They can be closer. This is one of the higher totals of the week. If you look at all the totals in the NFL this week, 46.5, I think was like the fourth highest. A lot of questions about the Jets' offensive line. I mean, if they don't show up, it could be a long night for the Jets. It's the first real game together with. I know Hackenberg and Rodgers have been together, but still his first time with the Jets on the field with all these guys. He didn't really play a lot in the train or the preseason. Jets' number one running back is still out, and if you watched Hard Knocks, I know you watched Hard Knocks. The Jets' defense was their strength. It seemed like throughout camp, the defensive line in particular. So I could see them having, a pretty nice night keeping the Bills in check.
Yeah, I'd say just generally, Rodgers tends to play slow as well and kind of meticulously drives down the field. So I think that could take up a lot of time. And just the combination of that and him being with like a lot of brand new teammates, I think they could start a little slow. And the Jets defense is pretty solid, or excuse me, the Bills defense is solid, I guess, but really the Jets defense is really strong. And I think that Sauce Gardner can easily shut down Stephon Diggs, or if he's on Gabe Davis, whoever he's going to shadow. So the 46.5, I would lean the under as well on that.
Yeah, I think both teams are going to make an effort to establish the run. It's not like either team is necessarily super pass heavy. So I expect there to be, some run game early on, and we'll see what the Jets look like.
So we have a few more 6-pack plays here, and what we want to do is we want to touch on every single game this week. So since you just have an over-under play on this Jets-Bills game, do you quickly want to just say who you think's going to win, or if there's a play there?
I'm taking the Bills, and I'm taking them to cover. I think it's like a 1.5 point spread.
Yeah, it's 1 or 2.
So if you think the Bills are going to win, you might as well take them to cover, get a little bit better profit boost. I just think they're a better team. I think the Bills are a playoff team. As we discussed last week, I don't think the Jets are a playoff team. I still think their offensive line has some work. And I think the Bills are just really well balanced, both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I would lean the Bills as well. I think it'll be a pretty competitive game, but just the Bills played so well the back half of the last season. I know everyone has a sour taste in their mouth from how they played against the Bengals when they blew that game, but
they're hungry.
Other than that, they're ready to go. So, okay, if you're done with yours, I have my 3 NFL picks. Well, they're my 3 6-pack picks, which are all NFL. We'll do these, and then we'll get into the rest of the slate. So this is probably my favorite play of all of that bets I'm making this weekend, and it's the Falcons, or it's Panthers at Falcons, and I'm taking the Falcons to cover the 3.5. I have not been impressed with the Panthers' offensive line at all, and their weapons are pretty decimated. They're not even really good to begin with, but DJ Chark did not practice Wednesday. Thielen and Terrence Marshall Jr., second-year player out of LSU. Those guys are both limited in practice as of a couple days ago. I think Bryce Young is going to struggle. He basically has to throw to Jonathan Mingo. That's their only offensive weapon right now. They have Miles Sanders. They're going to get him involved. I actually like him in fantasy because I think he's going to be a 3-down back, but I just don't see them keeping up with the Falcons. I think the Falcons will kind of just take care of the ball. Ritter will get him down the field, score a couple touchdowns, and I think 3.5 will be more than enough in that game. You have any thoughts on this game?
I was going to say,
Charlottian.
The Panthers' offense has been pretty disgusting in preseason. And the only times they've really gone up against first-string defenses, they got destroyed. I mean, they got shut out in one of their preseason games. So, Yeah, I think that the Falcons have a lot of weapons. I like Drake London a lot. I like Bijan a lot. I think that they have some skilled players that could give the Panthers fits, and I don't know. We'll see. I think they'll. I agree with you. I think they're going to cover.
Yeah, and I'm not down on the Panthers the whole year. I mean, I think Frank Reich is a good coach, and Bryce Young obviously went number one for a reason. Um, and so those guys, it just takes time. Their offensive line will gel, they'll get better. And if it gets, to a top 20 offensive line instead of like a bottom 2 or 3, I think that can go a long way and can cash in some wins for them.
Yeah, their offensive line actually wasn't bad last year. I think people would be surprised if you looked at the metrics for their offensive line play. They had DJ Moore last year and they had healthier weapons and things, and obviously CMC the first half of the year. But the offensive line was actually one of the stronger parts of their team. That's not saying much because they weren't great, but I am optimistic that the offensive line can eventually work itself out.
Yeah. Okay. So some optimism there, but we're on the Falcons -3.5. Next up, this is kind of a gross play, but I'm taking the Titans at Saints over 41.5. 41.5 is that's like an Iowa football total. That is so low. And I just think that these teams have enough firepower, especially the Saints, to get to, score 25 plus. And you're basically asking the Titans, can the Titans score 17 points in this game?
Mm-hmm.
I think they can do that. I could see a 24-20 game, no problem. I think that's really realistic. The Titans got DeAndre Hopkins. Whether you like Hopkins or not, he still probably has maybe 2 solid years left in this league. So he's a good weapon. I like their tight end as well. And then obviously they have Derrick Henry, who's still a good player. So with the Saints, I think Derek Carr is going to come out firing. He's kind of one of those guys that can throw 3 touchdowns or 3 interceptions. So I just think there's going to be a lot of scoring in this game. So I'm taking the over 41 or 41.5. I don't really have a strong conviction who I think is going to win. I would lean the Saints, but I'm not really betting that. Betting aside in that regard. Any thoughts there? Are you good to keep moving on?
I have the Saints winning a close one. That's really all I've got. I like the Titans over this year, but I don't see them winning this game.
Yeah. Next up, I have the Rams at Seahawks. I'm taking the Seahawks -4.5. I just think the Rams are going to be putrid this year. Cooper Kupp could potentially be placed on the IR. I'm sure everyone's seen that. It's just not. They just don't have the weapons either. They have Tutu Atwell and Van Jefferson are their 1 and 2 wide receivers. I don't think Stafford can trust them, to catch 8-9 balls a game. I think they can make a couple nice plays. They're obviously world-class athletes. They're both really fast, but those guys can't consistently beat NFL cornerbacks. And the Seahawks will have a pretty strong defense. Geno Smith looks to build off another pretty good year. So yeah, I'm just taking the Seahawks -4.5. That's a tough place to play as well. And I just don't see that game really being competitive. Like Cooper Kupp, they lost a guy who was like potentially a top 3 guy for the best player, the best offensive player in the NFL. Like you're not just losing like a normal wide receiver 1 who's like a middle of the pack, top 10, top 15 guy. This is a top 3 guy who was second, I think, in the MVP a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So you're losing a guy that was going to catch 150 passes this year. So
yeah, he was pretty much their whole offense.
Yeah. So yeah, anything else there for you?
I like the Seahawks too. I think the Seahawks are a playoff team. I think the Rams might be in sell mode come the deadline, and I think at Seattle, the 12th man. I don't think Geno's going to look as good this year as last year, but for week 1, I think he'll fare all right.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So those are our 6-pack plays real quick. We have Utah -6.5 against Baylor, Vikings -5.5 against the Bucks, Jets Bills under 46.5, Panthers at Falcons. We have the Falcons -3.5. We have the Titans Saints over 41.5, and then the Seahawks to cover the 4.5 against the Rams. So we touched on 5 NFL games. We can just kind of rapid fire go through the rest of the NFL games, if we have any major thoughts there, Slade, make sure to speak up. And then same with we have the top 10 college football games listed this week as well. So hopefully we can get into that too. So we're actually recording this. Like the Chiefs Lions game is about to kick off any second now. So we'll probably miss some of the first quarter of that game, but that's how dedicated we are to this Bet GPT podcast. We want to roll this content out there, but Slade, do you have any leans in the game tonight? The Chiefs are all the way down to -4.5 with Travis Kelce not playing.
I just checked right now. It's actually -4, at least in some books.
Wow.
I think the Chiefs are going to win and they're going to cover. And I said that a few days ago. I know Kelce being out is a big blow. I just trust Mahomes. I trust Arrowhead to show up. I don't know. I just think I didn't bet any money on this one. And obviously the Kelce injury does change my mind a little bit, but I just trust Mahomes. This is going to be the first time we've seen him healthy since middle of the season last year. So I think we might even see him look better than the last time we saw him in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Lions have a lot of hype, but with that comes pressure. The Chiefs are defending champs. They can handle it.
Yeah. I mean, the Lions have a lot of hype, but like their win total last year was 6.5. They ended up winning 9 games, so they went way above their total. They're not going to make another leap like that again. They would have to leap into like the top 3 or 4 teams, the whole NFL. Like they could marginally get better or at least build off a little bit, but I kind of see them being a 9 or 10 win team again.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do think they have a chance to win tonight because the Chiefs, their defense is not the same team as last year. They don't have Frank Clark anymore. He's over in the Broncos. They don't have Carlos Dunlap. They have like George Karlaftis as their number 1 defensive end, the guy out of Purdue.
Yeah, their defense does suck. I'll admit that.
L'Jarius Sneed is going to play. He was having some knee issues as of last week. But if they lose their top cornerback, that's another thing to look at. I just think I'm big on the overs tonight, and
I was going to say that too.
Bet player props actually, and I just have the who do I have? I got David Montgomery over 52.5 for the Lions rushing wise, and then Jahmyr Gibbs over 27.5 receiving yards. I think they're going to get both those guys super involved, and I think it's going to be a shootout, and Mahomes will end up winning it. But I do think there's going to be a lot of yards and a lot of points to be had tonight.
Yeah, I like the over here as well. Like I said, I think the Chiefs' defense isn't very good. At least week 1, it's not very good. And I mean, depending on kind of if they can work out a contract with what's his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Chris Jones,
yes.
Chris Jones, yeah. Future Cleveland Brown if he doesn't sign a contract with the Chiefs. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get too much into this game, obviously, because it's already going to be over by the time you guys hear it. But those are just kind of our thoughts on this game, and I am excited for like a look ahead. The Chiefs against the Jags next week. Do you like the over in that one like I do? I think there's going to be a lot of points.
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know about you, but I already mentioned my Ravens pick last week. Seeing that they start the season with the Texans kind of made me happy. It's like, okay, they're going to get off on the right foot. They're a 10-point favorite, the biggest spread in the NFL this week. It's at home. So I have a feeling you're riding with me on the Ravens.
I think 10 points is a lot. I think the Ravens are going to win. I probably wouldn't lay the 10. I wouldn't feel good betting either way. Just because I think the Ravens will run the ball a lot. And CJ Stroud, I don't know. When's the last time a quarterback had like a really good debut? I feel like it doesn't happen often. He'll probably throw a couple interceptions, or they'll be really.
It probably is like Deshaun Watson, someone like that. I feel like Deshaun Watson had a pretty good start to his rookie year with the Texans, but I feel like he was a little more talented. But sticking in the AFC North, I know you're biased. Your opinion here doesn't count. Same as mine for the Bears game. But I actually took the Browns at +2.5 versus the Bengals this week. And yes, a lot of it has to do with Joe Burrow probably not being 100%.
Yeah, the day Joe Burrow got hurt, I didn't know how bad it was going to be, so I quickly put some money on the Browns +3, hoping Burrow would be out. but it looks like I still got a pretty good number considering it's down to +2.5. The Browns kind of got steamed a couple days ago. It should be a pretty competitive game. And I actually have a teaser play as well. So the Browns are one of the two legs in it. I pushed the Browns up to +9. So I got them from +3 up to +9 in a 6-point teaser. And my other leg, skipping ahead to another game, is the Cardinals Commanders. Commanders are -7 at home against the Cardinals. Cardinals are starting Josh Dobbs, who just started, or who's just announced a starter, like I don't know, 72 hours ago. He literally just got to Arizona as he was on the Browns, and the Browns traded him. So he doesn't even know the offense. I don't know. When with that roster, I'm not sure how the Cardinals can win that game. So that's why I teased the Commanders down to 1. But
Yeah, I'm going to pick against the Cardinals probably every week this year for one reason. Did you see that speech that their coach gave?
Cannon, yeah.
That was the cringiest, corniest, least motivating speech I've ever heard, and it made me hate the Cardinals. So I'll tell you right now, I would not be surprised if that coach is a one and done because I think he's going to look that bad.
That speech reminded me of like a Portlandia or a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. It's like a skit, but it's real life, and everyone is just like awkwardly just looking at him.
Yeah, dude, like people in the comments were like, did he win some like competition to like where he gets to like go and give a speech to the team? Like he just looked like a random guy off the street trying to like fire up an NFL football team. Like it didn't even make sense what he was saying. And he's like, did you get here on the bus this morning? It's like, these are NFL players, dude. They didn't show up on a bus. They have a car. They drove to the facility today.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like a dynamic coach like Deion Sanders, we'll get to him later. Motivating like a college kid versus a grown man is a totally different thing. So props to those who can do it and light a fire under these guys. But just you're not going to motivate a guy who's making $25 million by asking if he took the bus to the facility today. I don't know.
Yeah, or ending it being like, I want killers. It's like, dude, look around your room and look at the talent that's there. You're not getting any killers out of this.
Yeah, so we are on the Commander side this week. Jaguars Colts. The Jaguars are 4.5-point favorites at the Colts. Colts are starting rookie QB Anthony Richardson. How do you think that one goes?
I was tempted to put this one on my 6-pack. I think the Jags are going to cover. First game for Anthony Richardson. The knock on him coming out of the college was his lack of experience, his lack of game reps, and I don't see how. If you're a believer in him, you're buying the stock 2-3 years away because of how young and inexperienced he is. You're not really buying it for now. This is a development year for him. The Jaguars are trying to win right now, and they have guys they can win with right now. I think it'd be very disappointing if this is a very close game. But I know it's the NFL, but still, it's a division game. But I just think the Jaguars are so much more talented.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's if the Jaguars lose this game, that they should consider that a pretty big failure on their part. The Colts, they have Richardson who can make some big plays, but like we said with Stroud, he's a rookie. There's limitations on these first games. Same with Bryce Young. Like these guys, the first 8 weeks, they're probably not going to play well. It takes time and game reps for them to improve. So you got to beat these rookie QBs while you can. Next game, we have 49ers -2.5 against the Steelers. So second year QB Brock Purdy coming in. He's healthy. He's finally been throwing. Looks like it's all systems go for him. Do you think that the Niners defense can hold off the Steelers? I mean, Kenny Pickett looked really good in the preseason, albeit that doesn't mean too much, but the Steelers have been trending up.
I would put the 49ers on upset alert. I mean, the Steelers finished the year strong. This game's in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
Tough place to play. Brock Purdy, despite how good he looked down the stretch, he probably a little part of him probably felt like he was playing with house money because there weren't really expectations for him for a lot
Yep.
of that time where he was playing well. Now you're coming off an injury, and everyone thinks that you have to like be the guy, the face of the franchise, the quarterback that leads them to a Super Bowl. That's a different expectation. The training wheels are off. Um, I'm not big on Kenny Pickett in terms of like being a franchise QB, but I think he can be a good game manager and just kind of let Mike Tomlin do his thing. So I think I would take the Steelers at plus 2.5, but I'm not putting any money on it.
Yeah, I would lean the Steelers as well. If it got up to +3, I would think about it, but I'm not touching it either way. I do think like the whole offseason they've been trying to game plan, and NFL teams in general have been game planning against Brock Purdy. So I think they might have him figured out. Because Brock Purdy, I don't know. He really doesn't do anything that great. He's just solid kind of everywhere around, but he did throw a lot of passes last year that should have been intercepted. His turnover worthy plays, he was like a top 5 QB in that regard. So a lot of that stuff isn't caught on your normal NFL, like football card statistics.
Mm-hmm.
It's stuff where, you got to look at the analytics a little bit. So I would lean the Steelers as well. Big game now for you. Packers at the Chicago Bears. The Jordan Love experience against the next year of Justin Fields' progression. Who do you like in this game?
Bears in Chicago. I'm taking the Bears. It's a 1 point. Bears are a 1 point favorite, so you might as well take them to cover. I think the Bears. Like I said, I would be more surprised if the Packers win the division than if they get fourth. I think it's more likely they get fourth than first, is what I'm saying. I just don't think they did a lot this offseason. They're the youngest team in the NFL. Did you know that? They have the youngest roster in the NFL. I do think that Jordan Love isn't going to look terrible or anything like that. I'm taking the over in the game. For whatever people want to say about Fields, that's fine. He's got to prove he can throw it. I understand. He had absolutely zero to work with last year, and I mean zero. If he sucked, I think I would have told you he sucks by now. The the defense is still not going to be strong, but it won't be as bad. I mean, the last half of the year, last year, they were like horrendous, like throwing games. It looked like type of horrendous. So I still think they're not going to be great, especially the defensive line in particular. The back end is fine, but the defensive line is not great. So I could see the Packers. The line is only like 30 like upper 30s, low 40s. So like the odds of, I see the Bears scoring around 17 at least, and I see the Packers scoring around a similar number. So I'm taking the over, and I think the Bears are going to win. I think DJ Moore is going to be involved. I know you don't agree with me there, but
no, I don't. I picked Justin Fields in fantasy last week,
and I have more.
With each passing day, I feel worse about it. I just do not have a lot of faith in him. He threw the least amount of passes in the NFL last year for any starter.
Good.
He has these big plays. Is he ready to throw it 35 times a game and win? Because that's what it takes sometimes. Obviously, ideally they don't want to do that, but there's going to be a playoff game where he has to throw it 35 times, and I don't think he can do it.
Look, when Justin Fields was coming out of Ohio State, no one even knew he was like this type of athlete until like the combine, because this is not the quarterback he was in college and high school. They knew he was a good athlete, but he was not a run first quarterback. Go look at his college tape, go look at his college numbers. He threw the rock. The problem is the Bears had the worst pass protection in the league, and their wide receivers, only one of them is even from last year is even in the NFL right now, and that's Darnell Mooney. Dante Pettis isn't in the league. Half these dudes aren't even in the NFL. Amir Smith-Marset was like their third best wide receiver for a while. Like it was a complete crap show. Yes, they ran the football a lot. They didn't really have a choice. I think based off everything I've seen with my eyes and I've read all off season, DJ Moore and Fields have looked good in the training camp and everything. They've been on the same page. A lot of big plays. I know the Bears defense they're going up against in practice sucks, but I do think there's already some chemistry there. And I know that the fans want to see him get the ball. they're going to find ways to get the ball in unique ways. It might be through screens, it might be reverses. I don't know, but they're not going to. It's not like they're going to have to. Hey, Justin, chuck it 45 yards just to get DJ Moore the ball. Darnell Mooney being
Yeah.
healthy should make his life a lot easier too.
Yeah. The offensive line is going to be key for him, I think. He took his sack percentage was like 14% last year, which is way too high. Just total drive killers. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they said that like a sack is almost worth like unofficially 2 points because it can kind of ruin your whole drive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 14% of the time you have a drive killer. That's not a sustainable way to win. So I know they invested in the offensive line.
It's not going to be ready to go.
Be better.
It's not going to be ready to go week one. Their best offensive lineman is going to be out, and their second best one I mentioned last week hasn't been going full speed. So I think the offensive line will probably get better. I don't necessarily know if we see that come to fruition week one, but they led the league in rushing last year. I think at the very least they can do that. Get Kmet the ball, get DJ Moore the ball a few times. It'll look fine. And they did put up points at the end of the day. I am worried about Justin's health, but they put up points last year. So taking the Bears, I'm taking the over.
Okay. Yeah, I think one more thing. The Packers, Christian Watson, their top wide receiver, did not practice today. So that's
I didn't know that.
Big. It's something to monitor. Yeah, that just came out a couple hours ago this afternoon. So Jordan Love is going to have to throw to Romeo Doubs, I guess, would be his number one option. I know they have Luke Musgrave, the tight end for Oregon State, who's supposed to be pretty good, but rookie tight ends usually don't break out until at least the back half of the year. So it's definitely a winnable game for the Bears. We'll just see how, I guess, the offensive line holds up and if the DBs can kind of keep these other wide receivers in check. Raiders Broncos. This is kind of a game that I don't know. I'm not really interested in watching this. The Broncos are 3.5 point favorites at home. Sean Payton's in. It's his first game. Raiders have Jimmy G. Broncos, they lost Tim Patrick in the offseason. Unfortunately, again, he's been hurt like the last 3 years. Jerry Jeudy's out. So their new starting wide receivers are Marvin Mims, Cortland Sutton. We'll see if those guys can kind of be enough for Russell Wilson to play well. I think if the Broncos can score 3 touchdowns, their defense should be able to handle that. I just don't really have a lot of faith in them to do that.
I'm starting to dread watching the Broncos the same way I dread watching the Cowboys at 3:30 or whatever. They're right up there with me. I mean, they've been a hard watch, really going back to like the end of the Peyton Manning era. I know they won the Super Bowl, but like really since that year, I just feel like they haven't really been a competent offense, and they've won ugly, and they've played some Big Ten West football. And they're like, because they're a big brand, they're always in like these big primetime slots. And I don't know. I really am not interested in watching them. So I don't even have a pick. I just don't care.
Yeah.
That's my take.
plenty more exciting games such as Dolphins Chargers. Both of these teams. This is actually a pretty big game for AFC wildcard implications already in week one, which is
that's a good game.
Say, but it's true. Yeah. So good game. Dolphins +3 at the Chargers. I would probably lean the Dolphins. I know I picked the Chargers as they're my Super Bowl pick, but I think they're pretty even teams, and you're giving me 3. I don't know. I mean, I could see that this is a field goal game either way. So I could see a push very likely if you bet the Dolphins. Or excuse me, if you bet the Chargers, because I think they would end up winning by 3. But yeah.
I stayed away from this one. I think the Chargers have a home field advantage of being at home, but the crowd and everything doesn't even matter. It's just like the Dolphins are flying from Miami to LA. That's their advantage, is they don't have to do that. So I stayed away. I'm just looking forward to enjoying that one because I think it'll be 2 pretty good football teams. Like you said, some playoff implications.
Yeah, so Packers, Bears, Dolphins, Chargers. Those are probably 2 of the best games in the afternoon slot. And then the other really good game is the Eagles, Patriots. Eagles are -4 on the road in New England. They're having the Tom Brady welcome home ceremony celebration of his career. Crowd's going to be jacked up. Bill Belichick's had the whole offseason to prepare. Eagles lost their offensive and defensive coordinators. Do you agree with this line of 4? It seems low, but people are betting the Patriots. People believe.
I was gonna, if I didn't know, if we were playing a game where you had to guess the spread, I would have guessed like a touchdown. So I guess with that said, I would probably take the Eagles, but I understand the hype around the Patriots right now. They had a good draft. Just listen to Bill Simmons talk; he'll convince you they're winning the Super Bowl. But I don't know. I just think the Eagles are one of the best teams in the NFL.
Yeah, and this is really, I think, doesn't have a lot to do with the Eagles. I think we know what we're going to get out of the Eagles. It has a lot to do with the Patriots. Their defense, if it shows up and it's a Super Bowl caliber defense, then all Mac Jones has to do is probably score 20 points. Can Mac Jones do that, though? I don't know. They got Bill O'Brien in as the OC. Matt Patricia's gone. They don't have to worry about that nonsense anymore. This is Mac Jones's final chance to be an NFL starter. They put Bailey Zappi. They cut Bailey Zappi, and then they brought him back on the practice squad. They're showing they're committed to Mac. No more excuses. This is it for them. So I would lean. I'd probably lean Patriots +4, but that's also a game I'm probably just going to enjoy.
Yeah, speaking of that, there's a lot of quarterbacks kind of going to make it or break it year. Obviously, Justin Fields is in that category. I don't know what the heck's going on with Kyler, but like Kirk Cousins in a contract year, this could make or break whatever the future for Russ Wilson looks like. But last year, a make or break year was for Daniel Jones, and he got paid. And people are still down on the Giants. They're a 3-point dog versus the Cowboys. I'm taking the Cowboys to cover. Nothing against Daniel Jones. I just think the Cowboys are actually really talented. Like the top end talent they have is up there with some of the best teams in the league. Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, like they have some dudes. So I think the Cowboys are going to be pretty good this year. I have them as one of my top 4 teams in the NFC. So I have them winning and winning by more than 3. Worst case, I feel like it's a push.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is an unofficial pod play, but I personally have bet the CeeDee Lamb over 75 receiving yards tonight. It's -114. So shop around on that number. But there's just so many statistics saying CeeDee Lamb is going to go off. The Giants love to blitz, and Dak, when he's blitzed, CeeDee Lamb's first in target percentage, 4th in yards per reception. CeeDee Lamb versus man coverage out of all wide receivers last year was 5th in target percentage. So I just think this is a 12 to 15 target game for CeeDee Lamb, and I'm taking the over 75 yards. So I know Kellen Moore's gone. Mike McCarthy's calling the plays. I don't think it matters. I think they're still going to give their best player the ball.
There you go.
So, okay, I believe that was the whole slate. Just super excited that we got NFL football back, but in addition to the NFL, we have college football too, and this is a big week. We got Iowa State. You want to sum this up in a minute or two for us?
Yeah, so Iowa last week, they beat Utah State 24-14. I mean, it was 24-7 with like a few minutes left. They gave up a late touchdown, but either way, it's going to come down to a couple things. Obviously, Iowa's offensive line. I've mentioned this multiple times, and it's still true. The offensive line the last 2 years has been pretty terrible. I would give it like a C minus for week 1. The passing protection was actually surprisingly good. It was a lot better than anything I remember seeing last year. However, the running game, which is where I thought they would maybe look a little better given an inferior non-Power 5 opponent, I thought they would look a little better, and they just didn't. They could not run the ball. Some of it was numbers, like a numbers game. The box was stacked, but like Iowa football should be able to run against a stacked box. They've done it for years, and I don't know. Cade even, you would think he should have bring some pressure off with the passing game, but Cade isn't healthy.
So you're hearing that Cade is going to be limited in terms of his mobility
Yeah, I mean well, Kirk is saying that, so this isn't some inside scoop or anything like that. Kirk is saying he's not going to do QB sneaks, he's not going to do bootlegs. Is that some gamesmanship? That's kind of been like the thing swirling around, in the rumor mill, I guess. If you wanted something juicy, it's that. Um, Iowa is, if they're going to get into a QB sneak situation, I think you're more than likely going to see some Wildcat. If you're ever going to see Cooper DeJean take some offensive snaps, I think this might be your best shot. I'm not saying
You
I think
won't you
that's
won't
going to
see
happen.
that until the NFL, when some team will finally give Koopy a chance.
Yeah, I'm not saying I think it's going to happen. I just think that if it's ever going to happen, it's now. But Iowa State's defense is good. They have a really good defensive line. They have a couple guys that are NFL guys, and that's with losing like a Will McDonald in the first round to the Jets. Um, they just have a lot of talent, and their secondary has 3 NFL guys in it. So if Cade isn't mobile, he's got to be really efficient throwing the ball. This game comes down to turnovers every single year. Iowa only has 5 offensive touchdowns in the last 4 years. If you go through like all of the games since Matt Campbell took over at Iowa State, the average game is within like 5 points, and that's with like one blowout in there when his first year. Um, there's always a big special teams play every single year. So I think Iowa's going to win. I do not feel super confident in it. I'm more nervous this week than I was over the summer. Iowa State looked pretty dang good. I know it's UNI, but that's a team that always gives the in-state schools fits, and they were up 30-0 like it was nothing. I still think the Hawks are more talented all around. Some of it's going to come from, I mean, there's just a lot of unknowns with Cade's knee. There's been some speculation of like, will he even finish the game? Like, and I'll say this: don't be surprised if Cade doesn't play against Western Michigan next week, win or lose on Saturday. I just think you're getting to a point where you have to start thinking about the Big Ten and beating Penn States of the world and like Illinois and Minnesota. Um, you should be able to beat Western Michigan with Deacon Hill or Joey Labus at quarterback. 13 days off between games could be really big for a soft tissue injury. Um,
I have a fun little game where we can do for the first time. This is going to be a weekly thing. I haven't told you about this. I'm just springing this on to you, and we'll see how you do. Cade McNamara passing yards. What do you think the over under is set at?
for this upcoming game or last week?
Yes, for this upcoming game.
170.
It's at 191.5. So would you be looking to bet the under there if you think it's 20 or so yards under that? Or you
Yes.
think that's about right? Yeah.
I mean they have a good defensive line, a good secondary. I think Iowa's gonna still try to establish the run. I think you're gonna see Caleb Brown and Deontay Vines get more catches. Only 4 wide receiver catches last week. So still, I know there was the big touchdown. I still don't think things were necessarily humming in the second and third quarters. The over under for this game is 36.5. So I'd be kind of hard to see Iowa winning, slinging the rock like that. I hope it happens. I would love to see it happen. I just don't think that's historically how it's gone in these matchups. It just seems like whenever Iowa plays Iowa State, it gets real. They start playing in a telephone booth every time.
Yeah. My opinion on this game is, with Iowa laying 3.5, I want no part of the 3.5.
Take the under.
I'm just gonna
Under.
bet the money line. I'm gonna bet the money line.
Okay.
And I'll probably wait for the live money line. I don't want to lay like 200 plus on this game. If there's a live under where maybe Iowa State like gets a field goal at the beginning, give me that around like 150. I'd much rather lay that, because there's nothing worse than betting on your team to cover and then they just win, and then you're like, well, my team won, but I'm out $20.
Yep.
So
I got 2 things for it. One, shout out our pod. We're one of like the only
mm,
people I saw with the Jamari Harris suspension for 2 games news. Like we got it down to the game, how many games he was out. We had it a week before it was even known that it didn't come out till game day that he wasn't playing. Some people still haven't even said that it's for gambling, but it's pretty obvious. Like the public has common sense and figure it out. But the second thing I want to say is I'm taking the under 36.5. I think that is. I know that's a crazy low number, but that's just what I think is going to happen. Is it's going to be? I think Iowa's defense is going to show up. They looked a little soft last week. They missed a few assignments. I think there was a couple dropped interceptions that they normally make. They only had like one sack, and I think that they rotated a lot of guys defensively. It was a hot day. I think you're going to see a tighter rotation. Iowa State's quarterback is asked to do very little. He has his second career start. He's never played a Power 5 team. Expect Iowa to bring some pressure. It's Rocco Brecht, Anthony Beck, the former ESPN announcer's son. He's like 6 foot. He's decently mobile, not a huge arm. I'm not afraid of him at all. Some of those interceptions that you used to get in the past from Brock Purdy, I don't think they'll be there because I think he's going to be very, very conservative. I think Iowa State is going to rely on their running backs and their tight ends a ton. I mean, they're going to look like Iowa. I really think they're going to look like Iowa the last few years offensively. Not necessarily their offensive line being terrible, but just like stylistically.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we should be in for a good one. Do you know where you're watching the game? Or are you just going to be posting up at home?
Hopefully at home. That's the type of game I like to watch by myself. I don't want to. I don't
Last
like
year we were with you. We were with you,
Yeah.
and you were sweating bullets.
Yeah, bad memory. Good time with you guys. Bad memory of that game.
Yeah, I will be at the in Santa Monica, downtown Santa Monica. They have an Iowa bar, Barney's Beanery, so you can catch me and my wife there watching the game. Looking forward to seeing these Southern California Hawk fans come out in big numbers. We went to one game last year, and quite a few people showed up. It was a lot of fun. So
big time
looking forward to that. Exactly. Okay, some other notable college football games. Utah Baylor, we already touched on that. We're taking Utah. Cincinnati Pitt. Pittsburgh's a 7-point favorite. I don't really have any thoughts on that game. I don't know much about either team. Okay.
No.
Next up, Notre Dame minus 7.5 against NC State. I know you like Notre Dame.
I like Notre Dame to cover. I'd be tempted to buy the point down to 6.5. Similar logic as to I play earlier with Utah, just to be a little safe. Notre Dame has looked really good this year, and as we said, NC State didn't look great last week. I have NC State's win total over, but I think they're going to lose. It's just a matter of how much. I would give Notre Dame over 7.5. Very good consideration. Okay. I'm honestly pretty chalky looking at some of the rest of these games. I'm chalky the whole week, and I'm owning it, and I'm fine with it. I think Wisconsin's 6.5 point favorite against Washington State. It's a little weird going to Washington State, and I know their offense isn't bad, but I'd be pretty surprised if Wisconsin doesn't win by a touchdown. That would kind of give me some optimism as an Iowa fan, like maybe they're not that good.
Yep, I agree there, and I'm also taking the favorite in Texas A&M at Miami.
Yeah,
I don't think Miami's ready to be as good as they think they are. Yeah, I took Texas A&M.
Texas A&M looked pretty good last week. I like their quarterback. I have money on A&M over Miami at 4.5, and I also have it on Oregon 6.5 versus Texas Tech. As you mentioned, Texas Tech lost. Was it Wyoming last week?
Yeah.
Oregon won by 80 points, and Bo Nix looked great. I would be really shocked if Oregon lost that game. It is at Texas Tech, but I don't know. Two teams trending opposite directions.
Yeah, if that gets into a shootout, I can't really see Texas Tech scoring 40. So that's why I would take Oregon.
They only had 20 in regulation, like you said, against Wyoming. It's hard to see them getting into – they're not keeping Oregon under 21.
Yeah. Another game with two ranked teams. We got Ole Miss minus 7.5 against number 24 Tulane. I don't really know much about the Waves in Tulane, but I do know that Ole Miss is going to have a pretty good offense this year. I could see them winning by double digits here. I probably won't play anything, though.
Yeah, I'm not playing anything. That's just something I'm going to scoreboard watch out of curiosity.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the two biggest games of the weekend. What do you want to start with? You want to start with Dion or Saban?
Dion.
Okay. We got Colorado hosting Nebraska. Colorado's a 2.5 point favorite. They have like 90% of the money on them. Their win total skyrocketed from 3.5 up to 5.5 after they beat TCU last week. Do you buy the hype? Are they as good as people think? Somewhere in the middle?
I think I've struggled with this because it feels like Vegas knows something. They've been really hesitant because if you only went off week one, you would not think it's a 2-point line for Colorado. I just feel like Vegas knows something and they also have a ton of incentive for Nebraska to win because of the amount of money being laid on Colorado. But I do think Colorado is going to have like the best crowd they've probably had in decades. That place is going to be rocking. So I don't know. I'm not picking either team. I don't really care for either team. Nebraska, seeing them lose in the most Nebraska way last week was awesome. They can't throw the ball. So if I had to say who I'm going to take, I take Colorado because Nebraska's quarterback, their passing game was terrible, and Deion's son looked pretty good.
Yeah, I think if Colorado can score like 30 plus points, they should be safe to win this game. I don't see Nebraska winning a shootout. If it's a low scoring affair and Colorado looks really sloppy and last week's win, you just get caught up to them, I could see Nebraska winning. This is probably just another game I'm gonna enjoy. And then the number one game of the week, arguably, is number 11 Texas at number 3 Alabama. Alabama's laying 7. Their new starting QB, Jalen Milroe, he had 5 TDs last week. Texas has Quinn Ewers, who is a potential future first or second round NFL player. You have any leans here? What do you think?
I'm sticking with Texas. I said it before the season. Nothing last week really changed my mind either way. Texas didn't look super great, but you have to imagine they're probably looking ahead to Bama when they're playing Rice. Rice's quarterback, it's kind of funny, is JT Daniels on like his 8th school. So that was kind of funny to see him. He looked terrible as ever. I don't know. I think Texas is going to win. I don't feel super great about it. I'll be really curious to see what Bryant Denny is looking like on because it's a 7 p.m. kickoff. So it's one of those rare Bama night games. I think it's going to be hot. I just think it's going to be a fun game. Jalen Milroe, he did have a good game last week. I'm not going to get carried away by it. They were playing Middle Tennessee State. So I don't know. I know you're probably going to take Bama, and they're a 7-point favorite for a reason. So I'm not going to shame anyone for taking Bama. It doesn't change. The outcome of this game won't really change my perspective of Texas either way, but I think Bama has a much better chance of going over the 10 games if they win this one. So I think it's almost a bigger game for Bama than Texas, you could argue.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be fully rooting for Texas, but I do think Alabama wins this game. I don't know if they cover the 7. I'd much rather bet the Texas +7. I think Alabama wins a close one. But I do think Alabama kind of smells blood in the water. LSU just got destroyed. They're not looking good. Bama can be like, hey, we're still here. We haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I don't feel as good about my under 10. I think it's still Vegas still has like a -1. I don't even remember, but it's not plus money for them to be under still. Like Vegas still is on my side. But obviously I don't feel as good about it because LSU was kind of disappointing. And going back to our college football part 2 pod, I said like, however you feel about Alabama has to kind of be related to how you feel about LSU. And I don't know if anybody could have watched that game last week and said that they feel great about LSU right now.
Yeah. I do have one bet on the game. I have Adonai Mitchell to score a touchdown, anytime touchdown for Texas. He's their second best wide receiver. He just transferred in from Georgia. He scored against Bama in the 2022 national title game to help him take the lead. So he's scored on Bama before. I think he's going to do it again. I think this is going to be a game that's probably, I don't know, each team will probably score at least 3 or 4 touchdowns. So I definitely think one is going to go to him. If you want to get a little crazy, him to score 2 touchdowns is 8-1. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that, but I do think him scoring 1 touchdown at +150 will do that. So once again, that's Adonai Mitchell +150 to score a touchdown. Okay. That pretty much wraps it up with college football. We have a lot going on this weekend. So we have college football Saturday. We have NFL Sunday. Sunday night, we also have the U.S. Open. I want to touch on this real quick. Tennis's fourth grand and final Grand Slam of the year. One side, we have the 1 seed Carlos Alcaraz against the 3 seed Daniil Medvedev. And then on the other side, we have the 2 seed Novak Djokovic, arguably the best player in the world, against unseeded player Ben Shelton, who's an American. Slade, I'm not sure if you've seen his game, but he's 20. He just graduated, or I guess, just finished school at Florida. He won the national title last year. His dad was the head coach at Florida, and then his dad resigned and now is just helping him be the coach on the tour this year. So really looking forward to those matchups tomorrow night, Friday. And then Sunday night, make sure to turn on ESPN for a little bit and check out the final, especially if it is Alcaraz against Djokovic. And if it is, I'm taking Alcaraz. At the beginning of this tournament, I was leaning Djokovic, but I'm taking Alcaraz because of how good he's looked. Djokovic has looked like there's some chinks in the armor, and I think that Alcaraz is going to come out firing. So, apologies, Slade. I know that was not on the agenda, but I have to talk a little bit. I have to talk a little bit of tennis sometimes.
I know how it is, man. I just tune you out.
Yeah, it's all good. Hey, last time I brought up Carlos Alcaraz and Djokovic, we bet on Djokovic to win the Cincinnati finals as a pod play, so that at least won us some money.
We needed that. Yep.
It is worth it if you listen to the tennis plays. So, in terms of MLB, really the biggest things. Let's look at the wild card races and then the player awards, and we can wrap this up. We have on the NL side, the Cubs are a game and a half back from the Brewers in the Central. I think they play like the D-backs 7 out of the next 10 games or something like that. And then they're also the wild card standings, which I have pulled up here. We have the Phillies, who are up a game and a half on the Cubs, and the Cubs are up 3.5 games on the Miami Marlins, who are back from the dead. They've won 6 in a row. I did not think they'd have a chance. And then the Marlins are up half game on Arizona and Cincinnati, and then they're up 2.5 on the Giants, who have lost 6 in a row, including a sweep from the Cubs. So are you leaning Phillies, Cubs, and then some third team in that order? Do you think the Cubs can get up there? Or do you think the Cubs are even going to win the division?
I smell blood in the division. A game and a half is, by the next time we record, we could be in first place. I'm not making that promise or anything. I'm just saying it's that close. You can taste it. The final 3 games of the year are against Milwaukee. You got to make a push for it. At the very least, I mean, there's the same number of games back of Milwaukee as they are of the Phillies for the top wild card spot. I just like how the Cubs are playing right now. I really like some of the young guys they brought up. Jordan Wicks has been awesome. Justin Steele, 8 scoreless, last time out with 12 strikeouts. For our loyal listeners who've listened since the beginning, we gave out Justin Steele at plus 1,800. It was not a pod play or a 6-pack play, but we've pretty much talked about it at least once a week. He's up to plus 160. That is the second best odds in the NL behind Blake Snell, who's minus 200. Outside of those two, it's already the third best odds is plus 5,000 for Zach Wheeler. So Steele has a legit shot. I'm tempted to hedge, but I don't think I'm going to. I've doubled down on this. I put some originally in the middle of the year when it was 18-1, and then when it got back up to 12-1 or something after he had an start, I sprinkled a little more on about a month ago. If you're looking for a name that's a long shot but trying to make some money, it's Zach Wheeler. He's plus 5,000, which is third best odds. He's with the Phillies. He's a full win ahead of everyone else in the National League in terms of his Fangraphs WAR. He leads the league in walks and hits allowed per innings pitched. And then the biggest knock on him is his ERA. He's got the strikeout numbers. He's 8th in ERA, so it's not like he's not doing well. He's just not at like the Steele or the Blake Snell numbers for his ERA. And so he's still a long shot, but he has a legit case. Like you can argue for him. There's really only 3 or 4 guys you can even make a case for at this point. So don't throw your money away betting something longer than Zach Wheeler.
Yeah, and I do think it's down to those 3. With Spencer Strider just pitched himself out of it against the Cardinals yesterday. He got absolutely clobbered. His ERA is like almost 4 now. It's in the 3.9 range. So that's never going to win you a Cy Young Award. Yeah. So it's, in my opinion, I'm not sure why Blake Snell is the favorite over Steele. Like his ERA is like 0.04 better, and he has less strikeouts. But I just think that Steele is going to. He has 2 starts lined up against the Diamondbacks, which I think he's going to play well in. Whereas Blake Snell has to pitch against the Astros tomorrow and tomorrow on Friday, and I believe he's going to get absolutely rocked. So if you want to get Steele at plus money, I think today is the last day you can do it. Blake Snell, so like I said, he's on the road against the Astros this Friday. The Astros, their last series, over 3-game series, just had 50 hits and 16 home runs. Some people are calling it Blake Snell's funeral. So, and honestly,
some people being us.
Yeah, some people being us. I think the answer's kind of been right in front of us the whole time. I think the Astros are going to win the AL. They're down to plus 220.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if you saw. Did you see the pitching matchup yesterday of Verlander against Scherzer?
I heard it was a dud.
Yeah, Scherzer gave up a grand slam. So
yeah, I agree with the Astros.
They're winning the division now. The Rangers have imploded. They're a half game back of the Blue Jays, even to get a wild card spot in. And so like I said, the Astros are in first. They're up a game on the Mariners. They're already up 3 games on the Rangers. Yeah, I don't know. Just a lot can change, over a 2-week stretch.
It seems like every team that really got aggressive at the deadline is having some buyer's remorse. The Rangers went all in, not just on like prospect capital, but financially, and they've gotten worse. The Angels, we don't even need to talk about them. They're just a disgrace to the sport. It just seems like a lot of these teams think that they can fix everything at the deadline, and that's not how baseball works. I'm not saying you don't be aggressive when the time comes. It's just it's not always that easy.
Yep. So I think that pretty much wraps it up with baseball. Keep an eye on that Astros money line against Blake Snell tomorrow. I'm not sure what the number is going to be, but I will probably be on that.
If Justin Steele at plus 1,800 hits for me, that'll be more satisfying than our Joel Embiid future that we placed last December.
So that the Joel Embiid future, us winning bets like that is exactly why we had to start a podcast, because all this information is just shared between us and it's not on the pod. I'm also, I really want the Cubs selfishly to win the division, because I had a $100 free bet that I placed on them at plus 900 to win the division.
Oh yeah, baby.
They're down to plus 140. I would love $900 for the Cubs, because I will blow all 900 taking my wife to a Cubs Dodgers playoff game in a heartbeat. So yeah, it's there's nothing better than football starting up. MLB playoffs getting in full swing. It's going to be an awesome fall, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, well said. Today feels like the start of like the best few months of sports. So we're going to have a lot to talk about.
No doubt. Yep. But yeah, we really appreciated you guys joining in. We'll probably have 2 episodes a week, usually one kind of previewing the weekend ahead like we did today, and then maybe a shorter episode earlier in the week, kind of recapping what went on and talking some more baseball and whatnot. But yeah, so we'll let you know on the schedule of that. But we really appreciate you guys tuning in today, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks.